Hello everyone, it's Nadine. Welcome to Makeup and Mayhem. As you beautiful people know, any tiff you may have, please cast it away because this is a channel of positive energy. Okay, so let's just notice the candles behind me. It's not just a plain backdrop. I know this literally is the least that could have been done, but it's an improvement. We're getting there. But most importantly, we have a new series, and hopefully I'm actually gonna continue this series. I always start a fucking series and then never finish it because it just doesn't gain the momentum that I'm looking for. So let a bitch know if you like this kind of video. This actually is probably the #1 requested style video that I do, between this and like scary stories. So that's why this is called Makeup and Mayhem versus like mystery and murder like Bailey. But big thanks to my fabulous subscriber. What was their name? Oh my gosh, I love this. So thanks to Bob and Carrie Kennedy for this name. Clearly this is a spin off of Bailey Sarian's Murder, Mystery, and Makeup. Oh my god, I fucking love her. I've only been watching her for like the last year, maybe year and a half, but I've wanted to do this style video for so fucking long. And so when I was looking for those type of videos, she's obviously the one that came up, and oh my god, fucking addicted. My version's gonna be kind of similar. Hopefully we don't cover any of the same stories, but I'm not just doing murder on here. I want to do mystery. I want to do unsolved cases, because all it takes is one viewer to say, hey, I know something about that missing person or that unsolved mystery, and that could completely change somebody's life and reopen a case. So of course we'll do that. We'll do a little bit of scary stories. It'll just be kind of room for everything, but the emphasis is gonna be less on the makeup and way more on the actual story. I know this industry is like so saturated with this style video. I totally get it. My queen is Bailey, so that's who I'm gonna credit. If you have a favorite, let me know, because I'm always down to find more people like this. I love putting this style shit on while I'm working. Makes it feel like I'm actually getting ready with the person. I love it. And I do have to say, like everything on my channel, and like you've probably already figured out, this is going to be adult content. There's murder, there's mystery, there's some suspense. Well, maybe not suspense, but this definitely isn't made for children. And if you're a child watching, just don't tell your parents. No, but for real, you would be amazed how many messages I get from parents saying, I watch you with my toddler. And I'm always like, that's fun. They're gonna have a very colorful vocabulary by the time they start school. And I'm also gonna block my eyebrows out. Not that I don't love the little lid space that I have, but this is like a New York studio apartment, and I'm looking for a 2-bedroom loft. This isn't gonna be drag. I just want a little bit more space to work with. This is kind of cool. I never sit this close to the camera. I've got a little desk here, and I'm actually able to like put my elbow on this and like balance. That makes things a lot easier. But today's story, you may have actually heard of it. While I was doing some research for this, it came up. I guess maybe it's being opened again or something. So hopefully all the information that I have on this is the most recent information. Sorry if it's not. But our tale starts with Steven and Jody Sharf. They were a couple pretty seemingly in love. To the outside eye, you would think that they're just like a match made in fucking heaven. It was disgusting. No, it just seemed like the kind of relationship that everybody wants. You look at them and you're like, I want that. I feel like most couples have a favorite restaurant or a favorite song or a favorite dance or something. They had a favorite place. They called it a rock. It was in the Palisades, which is in New Jersey. But the Palisades is like a huge set of boulders with a big old cliff overlooking the Hudson. You can see New York's skyscrapers off in the distance. And this is a public park. Like anybody can go to it, but I guess there's a bunch of little trails that veer off and you can find your own little love shack style thing. Or in their case, a perfect love seat shaped rock. It's kind of like this, and then there's a huge drop off. I think it was like maybe 10 stories. I don't know. For years, they would come here. They would bring food. They would bring lawn chairs. They would bring blankets, wine, and just make a day out of sitting out at their rock. When I was watching interviews, they described this place with such a passion. Like this was the place that they would escape reality. There's something different about the air. It was crisper and cleaner and fresher, and they always came back feeling revitalized. And if you've ever seen the Palisades, they are just so damn pretty. It's like something out of a Thomas Kincaid picture. Just stunning. Sounds like my kind of place. Give me a bottle of wine, a joint, and I'll be set for a month. But also, if they knew the fuckery that was going to be happening there soon, they probably would take their asses out of there and never return. But that's us getting ahead of ourselves. So, Jody and Steven, who the fuck are they? Oh god. I hope they smelled better than Coty Airspun. Steven and Jody met in Georgia sometime in the late 70s. Steven was a huge book nerd, like a total geek for history, specifically, I think World War I. Nope, it was the Civil War, but he just had a huge appreciation and respect for the history, which made he and Jody a perfect couple because, get this, she was a history teacher. They instantly clicked, but it wasn't like the love at first sight kind of thing. I think their minds connected and then their hearts kind of followed shortly after. They seemed madly in love, like a love that comes once in a lifetime. After their hearts finally fall in love, they keep going on more dates. They eventually get married. they buy a house, they have a kid in 1983 named Jonathan, and their love was strong. Like, it lasted through shit at work, through family drama, just everything that comes with life and relationships. All of the juicy bits. The parts they don't show you in the fairy tales. But between all of life's dramas and bullshit, they still made time for each other. They would go on dates, they would still have like couple time. Steven made it seem like it was really important for them to find the value in each other and maintain that, and they would find appreciation in each other by going on dates, which is exactly what they were doing on the last week of September in 1992. It was just like any other day. Because they lived in New Jersey, they could pretty much go to Manhattan anytime they wanted, so they thought they'd go to Manhattan, maybe go to a club, get a few drinks. I think eventually they were gonna make their way to a comedy club that night, but they thought maybe we'll take a little bit of a pit stop to our little spot, The Rock. Sounds nice, sounds romantic. They're gonna go downtown and then go down to Pound Town. I am here for all of this, you go. When they arrived, at the main entrance is like a little lookout thing where you can put a quarter in and view the city in like those dirty ass binoculars that everybody pushes their face to. There were lots of other people there, but they didn't really pay attention to any of them. They just had eyes for each other. They finally moseyed their way down to their secret little stone to canoodle. It just seems very romantic, like the sun is setting over the river. Steven has his back up against the rock and Jody's sitting in front of him, and they're both just peering out over the water. Oh my gosh, that just sounds like it's from a movie. There was a nice cool breeze. It was just a moment. So Steven decided maybe I should go to the car and get a few of the items that I packed for our little picnic. So Steven tells Jody, okay, I'm gonna go grab a blanket because it was a little bit chilly out. He stands up, Jody's still in front of him. He climbs over the edge towards the car and he looks back, and the last thing he remembers seeing is Jody being there, and suddenly she wasn't. He said right after he stood up, she did as well, and she was very, very close to the edge, but they had done this so many times that being close to the edge really didn't mean anything. But this time I guess it did, because he just witnessed Jody fall 12 stories down the cliff to the rocks below, and he was in shock. I mean, I don't know how I would react. I'd probably be like, oh, screaming, but he just stood there trying to comprehend everything, and like, I can't even imagine that. You just watch your loved one fall off a fucking cliff. I would be butt fucking hysterical. He finally comes to his senses and he's like, oh my god, I gotta help. Like, for all he knew, she could just be a couple feet down below the little cliff, because there's lots of little ledges that you can get caught on. But unfortunately the sun was setting, so it was pretty dark looking down, so he just sat on the ledge looking over with his tummy on the rock, calling her name, but he didn't get any kind of response. Like, nothing. I just could not imagine. Like, what the fuck? You're having this cute little picnic with Bae, and then suddenly Bae's like, bye. Oh god, I just got primer in my hair. This is literally a Something About Mary moment. I always love that on my channel. The best is when I don't realize till I'm done filming. So Steven is yelling down in a freaking panic towards his wife, not getting any kind of response. So of course he does what I would assume anybody would do. He runs up the little path, finds somebody who is driving by. He flags him down. He says, my wife just fell off the cliff. Could you go down to the police station and let them know? So Steven goes back to the rock. This driver goes down the hill, down the Palisades, down the cliffs and all that shit, to the little police station, who had not had anything interesting happen in fucking years. So this driver frantically throws himself through the doors and is just blubbering about somebody falling off a cliff. I actually think the driver was probably more panic-stricken than Steven himself, but the police instantly grabbed their shit and started making their way up the mountain, and they brought in a mountain climber named Mike. He was very, very experienced, but he didn't really know much about what he was getting into for this case, so he thought this was gonna be a live mission. He was just prepared for it to end in survival. We love a hopeful queen. So he gears up, he starts scaling down the rock, and after about 10 feet, there's a little bit of like a lip out, kind of a little baby ledge, and he saw a woman's purse sitting on top of it. He was like, this is interesting. It's got her credit cards in it, it's got her ID, and he just started to get suspicious. He was like, this is giving me a very odd feeling. And I think what really made him suspicious wasn't what he did see, but more what he didn't see, because there was no evidence of anybody like smacking into that ledge, getting their purse caught, and then falling. It just seemed very odd. Like, everything didn't add up, because there was no blood, there was no DNA, no hair, any fibers. Just even give me a shoe, for fuck's sake. But nothing. It was like Jody didn't even touch the rock. And by now, Officer Walter Seary had made made his way up to the scene. He knew Steven was probably not going to be a huge help. I mean, he didn't have gear, he wasn't a climber or anything, so really what purpose does he serve being there? Plus, by now, after the climber had really done some scaling, there were a bunch of red flags popping up. Siri kind of went there thinking, oh, Steven's probably not going to want to come down, he might put up a little bit of a fight, but Steven actually went very willingly, like he almost ran to the car. Okay, maybe he didn't run, but he was very willing. Much more willing than you or I would probably have been. Like, I probably would have stayed up there, wouldn't you have? I don't know if he was thinking, well, she's still alive, they'll bring her down to the police station, but until she's found, I would be like, I am staying right the fuck here, wouldn't you? I don't know, it's suspicious. We should turn this into a drinking game. Next one we do, anytime something sounds suspicious, maybe we should do like a shot or take a drink. Maybe not a shot because there will be no ending to the video. It'll just be a backdrop with me passed out on the floor. But no, Steven went very, very willingly. In fact, when they were in the car, Steven was kind of telling the officer about what had just happened. He said he got up to the car, he looked back, his wife was there, and then suddenly she wasn't. And it did make sense to the officer. I mean, people have slipped before. It's happened actually quite frequently there. And the cops didn't know if maybe there was alcohol or substances involved. He just didn't know enough to make any kind of assumption. Then by the time Siri and Steven actually made it down to the police station, Michael, the rock climber, made it to the bottom of the cliff, where at this point he was kind of expecting to find a mangled body. Like, it was 100 feet. That's a long ass ways to fall, especially if the body is hitting things along the way. So Michael was just preparing himself for what he might see. But a exploded kind of body is not what he found. In fact, he didn't find anything at all. Cue another suspicious shot. Oh, that's what we're gonna call them. We're gonna go grab some wine and we're gonna do suspicious shots. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. This is high octane sweet Moscato. This stuff can really do the trick. It is 17%. Woo! Glug glug, bitch. My goodness, I have not drank in so freaking long. I don't drink very much anymore, only because I gain weight like that when I drink, but I will break my streak with friends, so cheers. So, ooh, wow. Lots of things are suspicious, so it's better if Steven comes down to the police station just so they can get a better understanding of what the hell went down. Okay, where did we leave off? Suspish number like 57? No, suspish like 4, so let's put that up there. Michael didn't find a body, and he remembers telling his partner that there was something weird going on, like something doesn't feel quite right, so like it was circulating that there was fishy shit going on. Something smelled fishy and it wasn't the sushi shop across the street. In fact, it was so suspicious that he thought maybe this is just a joke, like nobody even fell. So he and his partner took their flashlight and just kept walking and kind of scaling it along the base of the cliff, thinking maybe she had kind of swerved over or something. Because if you fell, you'd probably be like right under where you fell. Like, right? Do physics not apply anymore? Some weird shit has been happening lately, so I wouldn't even be surprised. It took them a while. They kept looking around with their flashlights, not finding anything. Then after what seemed like ages of searching, their flashlight did finally come upon something white, which was Jody's body against a very bloody tree. It kind of looked as though she had hit the tree and then slowly slid down it, so there was just a blood-covered tree that she had somehow smacked into, until she eventually got to the base, and that's where she bled out. When they got closer to her, they noticed a really, really strong stench of alcohol, so they thought, okay, this makes sense because somehow there was alcohol involved. Like, it could be very plausible that she had too much to drink and just fell off. Steven, meanwhile, has no idea what the hell is going on. He's down at the station wondering why his wife isn't coming back with the police. Like, where is my wife? I just watched her fall off a cliff. Why isn't she here and fine? So he's just waiting and waiting there until all of the police that were on this little case came back and broke the news to him, which Steven then had to go tell their now 10-year-old son that his mother had just fallen off of a cliff of a place that they go to all the fucking time. That would be so heartbreaking and gut-wrenching to have that conversation and just experience that, which I think is what Steven mainly felt. He was just completely in denial that it happened. He was drinking himself absolutely bonkers. He remembers when he told his son Jonathan that they both just held each other and cried, but after that, it was dark times for Steven. Fortunately for the both of them, the sympathy really wasn't lacking. He had support from friends, from family, from pretty much anyone who had heard about this kind of freak accident. I mean, for fuck's sake, she left a child behind. So a lot of people were really, really concerned. Like, the love of his life just died on a cliff and he watched it. How could this happen to a place that they've gone so many times, like hundreds of times? Nobody knew how this could happen. In fact, investigators also wondered how it could happen, because almost from the start, the whole investigation team, like everyone who was involved, was getting weird vibes and gut feelings from everything going on. The rock climber Michael was losing sleep. He could not think about anything except why Jody's purse was just off the side of the edge, but there was no sign of her hitting it. Especially with where they found her, he thought either she should be on the ledge or the purse should be down with her. There was just way too much of a distance between her purse and where her body was. No matter how you really look at it, there isn't a way to piece that puzzle together. And whenever they're together, they just look at each other and are like, this doesn't feel right. Something is suspicious. Cheers. Why did her body land in kind of an upright position 40 feet from where her purse was? And they also found it kind of odd the way that Steven was acting. Like he just upped his ass with the police officer and left. Just so willingly. What the fuck is going on? If Bay were down at the bottom, you can bet your chap nipples that probably 99.9% of us would stay there. Oh my god, my fucking eyebrow is coming off now. Officer Siri, the gentleman who escorted Steven down, also got in on the Suspish train. I think that right when Siri picked Steven up, he didn't really know the whole story, so in the first portion of their meeting, he wasn't suspicious, but by the time they get down the mountain to the station, he remembers making a mental note that this guy is a fucking psychopath. Mainly because Steven just described himself basically witnessing a death, but he was so monotone. Like there was no inflection or deflection. Is that what that is when you go up and down? It was as if you were reading the newspaper, like the sports section. I'm taking a drink. I don't know, you don't just watch your wife die and then sound like you're reading a script to a police officer of all people. He thought it was, what do you kids say these days? Soup sus. Super suspicious that the first thing Steven did when he got into the station was go to the drinking fountain, put some water in his eyes, and make it appear as though he had been crying. Could you not be a little bit more fucking obvious, sir? That is sloppy and suspicious, so we'll take 2 drinks for that. Nothing was connecting. Steven was just too nonchalant, and the few pieces of the puzzle that they were able to connect just didn't go in Steven's favor. But nobody could really prove anything, and it is a police officer's job to be extra suspicious. Really, nobody could prove that this wasn't just a simple accident. In fact, flash forward a few months ahead, the medical examiner actually ruled that Jody's cause of death could not be determined, meaning it was just as likely to be an accident as anything else. Super helpful, I know. But because really nothing could be determined, the case was closed. Imagine how the investigators felt, because they are trained to like have heightened senses when it comes to this stuff, and they know something is wrong, but they can't prove it, so there's this guy who possibly murdered his wife just walking around among us. Frustrating as fuck. And my eyebrows might be a little bit different, but that's okay. Different is good. They're meant to be sisters, not twins. These are like cousins twice removed, and now they're just roommates. You know what? It happened. It's going to happen. We're gonna accept it. So life moves on for Steven. He tells everyone that this was just a freak accident. Nobody really has a reason not to believe him. The medical examiner didn't seem to disagree, so like what is there to do except move the fuck on with your life? Really, the only people that were suspicious were the individuals directly involved with the case. Cue in Detective Lynham. Or maybe it's Linham. Lynham? Fuck, I don't know. Detective Lynham really recognized that there were a lot of open ends with this case. He felt as though maybe there was foul play involved, and he just had a feeling inside of him that this wasn't an accident like at all. He was reading every police report available and was kind of connecting the dots and sort of reading between the lines of what was reported. And the biggest red flag, like a red flag for a lot of people involved, was how chill he was right after he had witnessed his wife die. Like, had he acted like a normal person would have, there probably wouldn't have been any issue at all. Or at least they probably could have overlooked any of the other issues. But either way, you really didn't have to be psychic to recognize the body language that was going on. There, the look is done. Aren't I pretty? Well, now that time had kind of passed a little, there was stuff coming out of the woodworks. Were they as happy as they let on? No. Bunch of fakers. Well, police started really looking at physical evidence, written evidence. They even interviewed some of Jody's best friends, and eventually found out that Jody and Steven actually weren't in love. Like, what a fucking rouge. This was so much of a rouge, in fact, they were in crisis mode. I guess the night at the Rocks wasn't supposed to be a nice little getaway. They had agreed to meet there to go over all of the marital issues that they were having. A date, says Steven? Date my ass. Even though I guess Steven brought like cheese and wine and crackers and everything to like schmooze somebody, they were actually gonna talk about the big D. Not his big D, but the D, divorce. Jody wanted a damn divorce and she was gonna get it. She was totally gonna go through with it. I think he was kind of hoping to woo her over and like win her back that night. But Jody was pretty much set in her ways. She had made a final decision. Things just weren't working out for her the way that she had hoped and the way that they had portrayed their relationship to everyone on the outside looking in. That just wasn't real. Investigators ended up questioning Hillary, who is Jody's bestest friend in the entire world. Like, Jody would tell her everything, and I mean everything. She sounds like she listens and she retains. She's not just sitting there on her phone playing Angry Birds. She is like here to be a shoulder to cry on, and that is exactly what Jody needed. And while Jody was crying on her best friend's shoulder, she let it be known that Jody was going to get a divorce, take their son, and just leave. Jody was convinced without a shadow of a doubt that Steven was cheating on her. She couldn't prove anything, but sometimes random ass women would just call the house, sometimes they'd hang up on her. And in Jody's mind, she's like, oh, these stupid skanks are interested in my man. Like, maybe not 1000% sure, but the feeling is probably mutual between her husband and these women. Detectives learned that Jody actually already served him with papers. Like, she meant business. She was on top of this shit. She was over it. She was out of it. That was on September 8th of 1992. 2 weeks later, she died. Be suspicious. Drink. Ooh. I have this resting on my Coty Airspun and it picks up every time I pick this up. Okay, but this is actually kind of really nice and I am enjoying the shit out of myself. Thank you so much for being here. 2 days later, Lynham? We'll call him Lynham. No, maybe I like Lynham better. I like Lynham. 2 days after interviewing Hillary, Lynham was interviewing Steven again, who did confirm that yes, they were about to get a divorce. Or I guess maybe they were just talking about it, but this was actually something that they had been talking about for years. Like, this wasn't something new. This whole facade of them having a beautiful, happy little marriage, I guess, was kind of crumbling around them. There was a lot of mistrust, a lot of hurt feelings, and altogether their marriage was somewhat disorderly. But also, name me a marriage that isn't. But this was like extra fucked up. But when he confirmed the divorce, he also said that yeah, there actually were quite a few side chicks. Not just a couple either, which I'm not judging, but I guess they had like an open marriage, and since they started their open marriage, within a few years, he had been with 50 to 60 different women. So yeah, I guess you could say that he was cheating, but it really isn't because it's open. But was he with other women than Jody? Yes. Again, not here to judge, but homie was busy. And meanwhile, Jody was, at least according to Steven, perfectly okay with all of this. She was in on it. She was like, you have fun, babe, do your thing. That came directly from Steven. It does sound a little bit suspicious. Maybe she was okay with it, but either way, we need an excuse to take a drink. But after sleeping with 50 or 60 women, they both kind of stood back and said, maybe we should rekindle what we have and go back to being a monogamous couple. You know, let's recenter our chi and shit, just get grounded. And that, Steven says, is exactly why they went up on their little date to the Rock on the last night that Jody was alive. They wanted to work on their things, kiss and make up, hug it out. But the detectives, they were not buying any of this. They called bullshit like the moment he started talking. They thought, well, one, it's kind of a weird place to be romantic. Like, it is just a fucking rock in the middle of a park. But also, this is their spot, so really, who cares where it is? It's romantic to them. But it also does seem a little bit suspicious because you can literally haul somebody up and throw their ass off the side. So it's like the perfect place to commit a crime. So like, how could you not be a little bit suspicious? And on that night, while Steven was down at the police station, they did search Steven's car. And what do you think they found? Some grapes, some crackers, some wine, some cheese, a blanket, and a hammer. Why does anybody need a fucking hammer on a picnic? Gonna smash some ants or something? Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me either. But most importantly, it doesn't really make sense to the police officers. They thought, well, maybe if he wasn't successful throwing her off the cliff, or if he got cold feet, he could just hit her in the head and kind of bludgeon her with a hammer. That would be a fabulous plan B, thought the cops. Just makes sense. Whatever his plan was, we'll never know. He didn't end up using it, and there was no real DNA or anything on the hammer. I mean, it's just a fucking hammer. Nonetheless, they just wanted to cover every aspect of their ass, so they asked Steven, can we search your house? And he was like, yeah, I don't care. I'd be like, oh, hold on, give me 5 minutes to go clean up my sex swing and all that. But he was different. He was like, come on in. They combed the house, asked him about the hammer, which he said he was fixing a drawer. I don't know why the fuck he would have a hammer in his picnic shit if he's trying to fix his drawer at home. He just says his mind got a little boggled. He threw it in with the picnic shit and it ended up there. Drink to that. I don't think so, ma'am. So So detectives are like at strike 100 with the red flags here, but I think more important shit was actually happening behind the scenes versus what they were going through. Because Steven, oh silly, silly Steven, he was talking to one of the local police officers, just chatting it up, you know, being a bro, not like smacking chests and talking football kind of bro, just like getting to know each other, or more so the officer getting to know him. Good officer. This gentleman officer was merely assigned to this only to be next to Steven and kind of question him, but more so to just check him out and make sure his body language doesn't change too much. They were chatting with each other, and once again, Steven is describing exactly what happened to this new officer. I'm sure at this point, like, chatter about this was already all over the police station, so he probably knew all of the details that he was being told. But midway between Steven telling this officer what happened, Steven stopped and said, "You don't believe me, do you?" To which the officer responded and said, "I believe an accident occurred. Was it an accident?" And at this point, Steven kind of just shuts down just a tiny bit. He puts his head down and very clearly says to the officer, "No." So the officer just very audibly heard Steven confess, saying that this accident wasn't an accident. Since they were the only two there, what else could it be? Could it be a murder? Don't be suspicious. Oh my god, I've had so much of this. If that is not the motherlode of all red flags, honey, I don't know what the fuck is. I'm positive they probably weren't recording that conversation. I don't think they had body cams like they do now. But because nothing was recording, the officer still wanted it fresh in his mind, so he rushed back to the other detectives and he recited exactly what just happened, and the officers just like brushed it off. The officers had just grilled him for hours upon hours and not gotten any kind of information like this out of him. He said nothing about this not being an accident, so they didn't re-interview him. I am not a police officer, I'm not a detective, I am nothing, but you would think that if a fellow officer clearly heard him say that he murdered his wife, they would drag Steven's ass directly back and question him, like, would you not? That is just sloppy. So much sloppiness from everyone here, what the hell? But instead, with no physical evidence and the ruling of death being undetermined, this couldn't really be called a homicide. And everyone kind of moved on before, but now they really moved on. The detectives took on other cases, they kind of pushed this one to the back burner, and it pretty much fizzled out. The people who were suspicious really didn't have physical evidence to go on, so it was once again just ruled as an accident and left alone. So this time, 14 years go by. Steven ends up marrying Tina, but unlike last time, this truly did seem to be a match made in heaven. Like, any of the issues that he and Jody had were not present in this relationship. This relationship felt as good as his and Jody's looked. Tina said that Steven was the ideal husband. They were like two puzzle pieces for each other that just seemed to fit. Tina had really no complaints. She didn't really talk to Steven about what had happened before. She just knew that it was an accident. But even with Steven's new life, and even though he and Tina didn't really discuss his past, he never forgot about Jody. Like, how could you? They had a fucking child together and he watched her die. You know, forget that shit. In fact, several people didn't forget about Jody, including the new prosecutor. This prosecutor was really trying to raise the numbers, trying to solve old cases. And so he brought back one that had totally fucking fizzled out, the Jody Schaefer case. Oh my gosh, this has taken me so long that I need a fucking pee break. Hold on. Ooh, this look though. How you doing? Fuck, I look like a bird, but a sassy bird. By 2002, there was nothing left to the case. It was completely gone. And this prosecutor was really what this case needed. It needed a hardcore push because on one hand, it didn't have solid evidence for it even to be reopened in the first place. It had literally nothing new, but now what it did have was a famous name. By now, Dr. Bodden, a world-renowned forensic pathologist, had joined board. He's famous if you've ever seen HBO's Autopsy. He's the investigator on that show. Like, he's testified in the O.J. Simpson case. He's investigated the Kennedy and the King assassinations, as well as Jeffrey Epstein, John Belushi, and even George Floyd. So, like, this guy has done some shit. He is the real deal, and, like, he knows what he's talking about. And the prosecutor was hoping that he would come to bring the heat, and oh my god, he burned everyone. He's like a fucking dragon. Looking at all of the old evidence, Dr. Bodden determined that without a doubt in his mind, this could not have been an accident. There is no way. Talk about a mic drop, like, boom moment. So in December of 2008, detectives once again paid a visit to Steven's residence. He was thoroughly confused. He could not figure out why the hell these officers are at my door bugging me. Like, could it have been the possible murder case that I was involved in? Probably not. As far as he knew, his name was perfectly clear. He wasn't a suspect or anything. He was just trying to live his best life with his new wife. But now with this realization that there really isn't any way this could have been an accident, police took Steven into custody. I do want to say that I've seen footage of Stephen talking, and when he speaks, he does seem very sincere and genuine when he speaks about this being an accident. Like, he had tears in his eyes and he appeared distraught years after the incident. So it's just really difficult to know exactly what to believe here. But like, how many times have we seen somebody kill a loved one or just anyone in general and then act like they're remorseful? So yeah, I really don't know. Eventually though, trials do start for the alleged murder. But with every case, time is one of the most important and crucial, if not the most important players. And when you do have cases that go cold for a little bit, they can be a little bit tough to reheat on both sides. Like, memories fade or change, witnesses are lost, people die. But then again, time can give the people involved a chance to grow, to kind of look at things in a completely new perspective, which is exactly what happened with this case. Stephen Sharp was now being accused of something he had done almost 20 years ago. And during this trial, the prosecutor promised to tell the jury a story that was just as simple as it was brutal. Stephen didn't want to pay for an expensive, costly divorce, so he lured his loving wife to the edge of this cliff that everyone knows they loved, and he pushed her or threw her the fuck over. That just has to be how it happened. And the prosecutors brought up the fact that there was virtually no DNA or any kind of evidence along the rock wall that signaled anything towards an accidental tumble, not to mention how fucking cool and calm Stephen was the entire night. He was chilling like a villain, and the officers who took the stand kept reiterating how peculiar it was that he had just witnessed his wife die, but he was still so calm, much too calm. Like Officer Siri, when he was in the car, he played back word for word from his memory exactly what Stephen was saying, and the way he said it sounded like they were exchanging basketball scores or like sewing tips. I don't know what the fuck straight guys talk about, boobs or something, I don't know. And a very important person to take the stand was the officer who was standing there with Stephen, the officer who witnessed Stephen put his head down and say that this wasn't an accident. But what that officer said was already kind of known, like that was public knowledge. The real juice here, like the girth of this story, comes from the family and the friends that took the stand. Dr. Bowden himself, remember him, the famous pathologist? He marched his ass up to the stand and testified. And he said with all of his knowledge and experience that's behind him, he believes this case was no accident, it was 1000% a homicide. Like, you have this infamous pathologist going against you, like there is no way anything is gonna go in your favor after this. He went on to say that if you accidentally fall from a cliff, you'll be within feet of where you fell from the base. Like, not directly right there because you might hit a cliff or a tree or something along the way, but still it's gonna be in like that vicinity. But that didn't happen with Jodi. Her body was 40 or 50 feet away from where it should have been. Suspish! It's basically just ice now. But not only was she like 40 or 50 feet out from the base, she was also 30 feet north of where she should have been. Like, this is a large space to span. She had to have been like picked up and forcefully thrown to land where she landed. So to agree, Dr. Marianne Clayton, who is the original medical examiner and determined that Jodi's death was undetermined, when she was on trial, she said that the head and neck and just overall body injuries weren't really consistent with falling down a cliff. Once again, I'm not in this field, I'm not a forensic person, but I could have fucking told you that. I would probably say that could have been deduced like a long time ago, but she did say that given the technology that they had, this was the best conclusion at the time that she could have come up with. I mean, nothing against her, but that's a little bit scary. And now the time had passed and she was able to kind of re-examine the files and look at all the injury pictures and all that good shit. She thought, you know, maybe if you fell down like a 100-foot cliff, you would have maybe a broken bone or two, I don't know, a cut, some scrapes, just anything, but Jodi didn't. So that makes you wonder, why in the hell would Stephen kill Jodi? Maybe because he didn't want to go through the divorce? Maybe he didn't want a custody battle? Maybe he didn't want to split his assets? Like, divorces can be very, very messy. So, like, I don't get him killing somebody, like, fuck that, but I do understand him not wanting to go through with the divorce and just wanting to work things out, but I also understand that sometimes you can't. You give it all you got, kid. You do what you gotta do. Except maybe without the murder? But prosecutors also found another major reason for Stephen to kill his wife, the possible payout. Get this, not but a few months before Jodi's death, Stephen took out a $500,000 life insurance policy payable only to a primary beneficiary, which was Stephen. If they got the divorce that Jodi was pushing, the $500,000 payout might not happen. Don't take my money, not the money, not the gumdrop button. But to Steven, she was worth more dead to him than she was alive. Like, what a creepy thought. Needless to say, things really weren't going that great for Steven in court. After hearing everything that the prosecution said, it just seemed very bleak. When Jodi was alive, she actually confided in her best friend, saying that Steven would become violent with her, especially after the news of the divorce, and she was just determined to get the fuck away from him. And when she did end up serving him, she was scared shitless. But like, just because you're scared of somebody doesn't mean that they're gonna kill you, right? I would hope. And for the most part, I feel like that's what mostly everybody assumed. That is until Jonathan took the stand against his father. Jonathan was now in his late 20s. He was a businessman, but was claiming that his father was just like desperately raging and violent, just an angry, brutal man who would really just abuse the shit out of his mother. And Jonathan said Steven would throw hot coffee at her, would beat her with his fist while he was driving, and Jonathan would be in the back seat just begging his dad to stop. These were super serious, case-altering allegations that he was bringing to the court. And it's not like he wasn't credible, like he was a grown-ass man now, so like people were listening. But Jonathan also remembered the last day that his mom was alive. He remembered her saying that she didn't want to go with Steven, at least not alone. In fact, she told Steven, if I wanted to go with you, I wouldn't fucking be divorcing you, right? But for Jonathan, even with all of the abuse that he witnessed and went through, it didn't really click in his mind that his dad was the murderer until 2008. He was able to see all of the evidence and hear everything, and it just like clicked like, oh. But again, where was the proof that Jodi killed his wife? The hammer in the bag? It didn't have DNA. I suppose that could be something, but what was way more damning than that was the other eyewitness, the woman that Steven was sleeping with. Or one of them at least. Terry Schofield, a very innocent, sweet-seeming woman, was just smitten with Steven. There really is no other way to put it. She was just Twitter-pated. They'd been together for a few months. She even told a gal pal of hers that he was the best thing to ever happen to her. Like, she was just head over heels. Just so perfect. To her knowledge, there was absolutely nothing amiss. Like, how could it ever be better? Well, ma'am, we mustn't blame sweet, innocent Miss Schofield, because Steven actually lied to her while they were sleeping together, saying that he was never married, he doesn't have a wife, you're my only boo. They always say that. Meanwhile, their dick's wetting some other person while they're texting you that. We digress. He lied. She didn't know there was anything amiss. She didn't know that he was divorced, but he did say that he had a lot of stress, like a lot of things on his mind. He was going through some things. She didn't really know what. And their relationship was kind of on the short side. Like, it was only a few months, so they couldn't get super attached, but one of the key things that she very clearly remembers him saying was on Labor Day when they were walking the beach. She remembers him saying that by the end of September, all of his stress would just be gone. That's it, just be gone. She didn't really think much into it at that time. She was like, okay, well, maybe he's got like a meeting or something that he's gonna have. She was just still in the infatuation stage. She was in bliss. She was just overlooking all of the red flags. She was not fazed at all until all the court shit started happening. Then, like for so many people, I think shit just started clicking. All the little puzzle pieces that were once missing aren't as missing anymore. Things are just becoming a little bit more clear. It's like when you finally put your contacts in, you look in the mirror and you're like, what the fuck? When did I gain those 20 pounds? And then you take them back out and you're basically Terry. Unbeknownst to Terry, 2 weeks after that conversation, Jodi was dead. So he's already been dishonest about being married, and now we know about his stress being mysteriously gone. Like, things aren't looking good. But the witness that was really the clincher of the sphincter here was Jodi's best friend. Remember her? She sounds like a peach. Jodi told her best friend that if anything were to happen to her because of this divorce, look directly at Steven. And look, something happened right around the time of her divorce. So who the fuck are we looking at? The last person with her. Everything was against Steven, and it was very clear and very strong. The angry and abusive husband facing marital issues, the loss of a possible insurance policy, possibly losing his son, possibly losing half of everything, and just living multiple lives with women that he was lying to. Like, it didn't look good. But of course, if there's evidence for a conviction, there's probably evidence against it. Tina, the current wife, just believes all up and down that he simply could not do it. This gentleman is so sweet. He has such a kind heart. He is such a sweet soul. She basically gives the he's innocent shakedown. He's just too precious and wouldn't even hurt a damn dung beetle. But people don't know if her little dung beetle bit is true or if she's just talking shit. But anything she had to say really wasn't that effective in anything, so her shit just got pushed to the side. So the defense began by reminding the jury that after all of these years, we still only have the same evidence. The same evidence which shows him not guilty. Like, they couldn't prove he was a killer in 1992, how the fuck are they supposed to now? And one of the huge defenses here was sloppy police work. The body was never photographed before being moved. Like, I'm sorry, I've seen Dexter. You were supposed to photograph every inch of a crime scene. I thought, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. But the police basically destroyed every part of the crime scene. They were moving shit, they were walking all over stuff, they were touching things. It could have been because they didn't think that it was a murder case, so they weren't planning on it going any farther. But there were also so many people at the lookout at that time, just onlookers, people enjoying the scenery. Where were all those people? Apparently, rather than being questioned, the police officers just sent everybody home. Who knows what anybody saw? Like, for all we know, somebody could have seen him push her over the edge. Sloppy, sloppy. Just a sloppy Joe up in here. But even way back when this did originally happen, the police were suspicious about him, but why didn't they record any of the interviews? There is no evidence that he was even taken in. Other than shit that's written down, like nobody took any documents of his statement. Nobody saw how monotone he was speaking, how he was acting. They're just going based off of he said, she said. And the jury just needs something physical to go off of. So when the police were questioned as to why didn't you record or do like an audio recording or something of Steven, their answer, I don't know. It just does not make sense to me. Like that, I don't get it. And the hammer that was in the picnic bag, we basically threw that away. There was no evidence saying that he was going to beat her with it. It was just hearsay. Just like Dr. Bodden came to testify against Steven, Steven had a little card up his sleeve. And that is Dr. Cyril Wacht. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong. Anyways, they have well over 14,000 cases that they've been involved in. Or I should say they've done over 14,000 autopsies. They've testified in over 1,000 cases. Some of them include JFK, Sharon Tate's, Kurt Cobain's, Elvis Presley. The list goes on. Like, he is a big deal too. He's probably equally as powerful as Dr. Bodden, but he just took a completely different take, which was that Jody died an accidental death. Bless him. He used a large monitor as well as a big stuffed teddy bear to kind of demonstrate to the jurors what could have happened. And what was super fucking important with this case was the angle of the rocks. She could have totally fell down the side, and the rocks that were like that, she could have fallen down and kind of catapulted out from the angular rocks and ended up in the tree. That, to me, just, I don't know. Like, I picture that on Wile E. Coyote, but I don't know if I believe that that could really happen. Could it? Maybe it could. Fuck, I don't know. But that really does explain why her body was found so far away, why it landed in a tree. It does kind of make sense. Oh my God. Fuck me up. My ColourPop liner just broke. But that really wasn't the only thing against the prosecution claim. Remember that $500,000 payout? I do. Who the hell could forget that? Well, apparently Steven did, because it took him years to claim that bitch. But also, if any eyes are on him and he's smart, he would wait. So it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because otherwise, like, if you instantly take it out, then of course you're like a sitting duck. That's why you did it. The other motive, their divorce case, they were talking about divorce for years. Steven even mentioned that to the police. To him, the divorce papers were just another thing that they had to go through. It wasn't as big of a deal as people were making it. People were just painting Steven as a crazy, abusive, angry person because of the divorce. But whether or not he truly was pissed off about the divorce, I don't freaking know, because nobody really said that he genuinely was, at least nobody credible. Everyone just assumed that, oh, my man's getting a divorce, he's gonna pop off, like, yeah, he's gonna kill his wife. That was just an assumption among people. It was never proven. Other than what Helen said she allegedly heard, there really wasn't any proof. And who knows, like, Helen could just be bitter that her friend is dead. And I don't really have any reason not to believe Helen. Like, she seems like a pretty trustworthy person. I don't know why she would lie. She's probably a credible source. People just kept coming forward saying he was abusive, and he would defend himself saying, no, I'm a nice person. Like, I am a human being. He wasn't abusive like people said, and he wasn't really that angry about the divorce, but he certainly didn't want it. He was merely trying to resalvage the pieces of his marriage, which is why they went on the date to the Rock in the first place. And the statement that Steven's girlfriend made, where she said that he would be stress-free about everything by the end of September, Steven later said that he would frequently use that line on all of his girlfriends, and it was just a clumsy way to break up with them. I don't get that. Like, how does that lead to a breakup? Did he mean that he was gonna break up with poor, sweet, innocent Terry at the end of the month? I don't know, that just doesn't, like, connect. I think partway into having 50 or 60 different girlfriends, you'd figure out how to break up with them smoothly. But Steven also talked about all of the girls that were allegedly calling. He just flat out said that they weren't. And if they were, they didn't bug Jody because she too had gentleman suitors. Ooh, we're getting deeper. The cucumbers are turning into pickles now. Jody filled out this dating service with everything that she wanted in a man. So, like, it was very clear that they both weren't in this marriage, or at least it was actually an open marriage, like he said. But I think out of all of the information and everything that was found, both good and bad, the thing that took the biggest toll on Steven was when his son took the stand. Like, that is a big ouch right there. Just Jonathan painting his father as like an abusive brute, a cold-blooded killer. It made Steven sick to his stomach because he swore that he never touched or hurt Jonathan. In fact, when you look at the police report just a few years earlier, Jonathan had nothing but kind things to say about his dad. He never mentioned any kind of abuse or hitting him. He was like, my dad is actually a really good guy. Like, Father of the Year award goes to him. I got him a mug. Like, he is just stellar. And so why is it now that suddenly Jonathan is like changing his mind? It doesn't make sense. Or does it? Because on the witness stand, Jonathan actually admitted that he lied to the police several times, which just takes his credibility like down to zero. And then once he found out that his dad was arrested, his story changed completely because who do you think would then get the money if his dad was arrested? Jonathan. Okay, my camera battery died, so I kind of got a lot of the look out of the way here. Where did we leave off? I think his son was being a little bit shady. Outside of the court, when asked if Steven did it, he was so passionate. He said no, up and down, he did not. But still, he wouldn't take the stand and testify in court. But to this day, he still says that everything that he originally told the cops is completely true. They were just gonna go out, go to the club, have a good fun night, and he really wishes that they didn't take the detour to go to their favorite place, that they'd just gone out instead. Everything would have been completely different. Although, maybe his hammer would have been dirty, so who knows? But even though he didn't take the stand, he still professed his innocence. But did the jury feel that way? It seemed as though they were pretty split in half. Like, some of the jurors thought the evidence was over-fucking-whelming. Others thought there really wasn't enough to stand on. The things that the jury really ended up looking at was Jody intoxicated during all of this when it happened? Yes. So why did Steven let her that close to the edge? Like, she was right up close while sitting in front of him. It took the jury just 3 days for everyone to come to a conclusion, and I think what really solidified everyone's choices was Jody's best friend saying that if anything happened to Jody, look to Steven. Like, the words literally came from Jody's mouth, allegedly, I guess. But I guess that wasn't technically enough to fully go off of what really nailed that nail into the coffin was Terry's statement about being stress-free by the end of the month. It painted the jury a perfect mental image of an execution, not an accident. But to this day, Steven still believes that the jury was kind of out to get him. Like, they did have a little bit of a bias towards him. He thought that maybe his open marriage was a lack of morals and they were judging him based on that. So I would hope that they'd base less off of that and more off any other evidence that they could have, especially when she was on a dating site. So there's like evidence that they did have an open marriage. But in all honesty, the amount of evidence for any kind of judging really is very, very minimal. In the end, Steven was given life in prison, and in 2014, an appeals court overturned his guilty verdict. Then 2 years later, the Supreme Court reversed that decision, and now he's carrying out his life sentence in jail. I don't know if maybe they're going to be reopening this case, but it seems like a lot of the research either swings one way, like he either did it or he didn't. It's just hard to know. This is a tough one, especially because there have been a few accidents at the Palisades, so this is either like the perfect cover-up or it genuinely was a terrible accident. What do you think? I will link down below like the full court case, like the transcripts from what was happening. This is obviously a simplified version of this, so if you want more deets, check that out. But I just don't know. I feel like this should have been acted upon a little bit better, like way back when, but I don't know how it would have been. Well, yeah, I fucking do. Take pictures of the crime scene and like take better notes. I guess they didn't know it was a crime scene, but like if there is any kind of feeling in your gut that something isn't right, you would think they'd call like a whole team in, take pictures, do everything. So I don't know. She's just a very sloppy slushy. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. This was very, very fun. fun. It did take me a long ass time. I have to go to bed. But truthfully, this was one of the more fun videos that I filmed. I love telling stories so damn much. And this way I'm able to combine a couple of my passions. So let me know down in the comments below if you like this series. Is there a case you'd like me to talk about? Doesn't matter if it's solved or unsolved. Anyways, I am going to go wash my little look off. I actually really like it. I don't know how it's translating on camera, but it is sassy. I feel like a little gay alligator. And once again, thank you so much for being here. You know I love having you, like, so damn much. If you'd like to support me and my channel just a little bit more, please feel free to join us over on Patreon. It's patreon.com/poplux. There you get videos a day early, you get Patreon only content, plus best part, it is cheap, fun, and fancy just like me. And like always, please be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell down below so that you're notified anytime I upload a new video. Don't forget my newest collection of highlighters, including Black Ice, which does change from black to white, is available at thepoplux.com. Also, my latest album, Kiss of Fame, is available everywhere online that music is sold. Thank you so much to everyone who's supporting them. Comment down below, let me know what you thought of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter at officialnady, and you can follow me online at thepoplux.com. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you again soon. Bye!